Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. All right, welcome back, everyone, to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. My guest today is Hailey Bohlman of Cork Fizz. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I think I've warned you, wine is not my thing.
Yes.
Wine. I'm doing this for my listeners. I am suffering. No, I'm just kidding. I've been on your site. You're doing some things that I can appreciate. So let's launch this thing off by saying, why don't you just give me a little bit of your backstory? What I do know about you is this. Let's just all share what I know, and then you're going to fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Midwest to Seattle. You did a year or some studies abroad in Spain, which is where you were exposed to wine. Somewhere I heard something. I think I was listening to one of your episodes, and you said that you went to Spain when you were 20, and you'd never ordered wine before that because you were below the legal drinking age, which I kind of chuckled at that. I just thought that was kind of cute.
I'm such a goody two-shoes.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, oh, okay. So you go to Spain, you're introduced to wine. You come back, you move to Seattle. And I know I'm leaving out a lot. So why don't you share your backstory? Get us to when you moved to Seattle.
Okay, sure. So I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from a super small town in Wisconsin. I feel like that helps give people a little picture of who I am. I think that's a big part of who I am. Like in small town, meaning like less than 5,000 people.
What's the name of the town?
It's called Dodgeville.
Dodgeville.
Yes.
So you got out of Dodgeville.
What's that?
You got out of Dodgeville.
I did get out of Dodge. Yes, I know. It's like well known for like Land's End, the clothing company is there.
Okay.
And then there's a great bakery. So those are I feel like the two things to know.
So for those of us that know next to nothing about Wisconsin, how close to Milwaukee?
About like 2.5 hour drive. So it's in like the southwest corner of Wisconsin. So only about like 45 minutes from the state capital, Madison.
Okay. So you're close to Madison. So it's not like you grew up out in the middle of pastures and dairy fields, things like that. I mean, there
was a town. It is funny. Like whenever talking to anybody that's like not from like a small area, I'm like, we were actually the biggest town in the county. So it's a pretty big deal. We had the courthouse.
Okay.
And,
So you're the county seat. Okay. Got it. All right. So
yeah.
Wisconsin, you grew up in Wisconsin.
Yes. Yeah. And so I feel like that also gives like a little background of like wine was not a thing in Wisconsin. There are some wineries and my mom, now that I've gotten her into wine after all this, she's started to like explore those. My family all still lives there in Wisconsin. But anyway, I come from a super small town. So I knew, when I graduated, I did want to explore a little bit, but big cities still scared me. So I made it up to Minnesota and I went to a slightly larger town of about 20,000 people, a town called Northfield. And went to school at Carleton College, which some people in Seattle tend to know because they had a really good ultimate Frisbee team.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So like everybody's like, oh, you must know how to throw a Frisbee. I'm like, I do not know how to throw a Frisbee. I'm so sorry. That was not something that was covered in the curriculum.
I've never heard. Okay. That's very cool. All right.
Right.
All right. So you were not recruited on your abilities to throw a Frisbee. Okay.
No.
All right.
No, unfortunately not. I did play softball for a couple of years. But yeah. And so again, I was such a goody two shoes. I drank a little bit in college, but like it definitely wasn't wine. It was the sweet stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But while in college, I got a chance to study abroad for a term. And while I was there, it was exciting to get to order wine. Like I said, I didn't do that at home. But as far as it went was just like vino blanco. Like I just, vino blanco is all I really asked for. I never asked about what it was or, it was just like, it was just fun to get to drink and white wine tasted good while I was there.
Okay.
So kind of like that became like my drink of choice whenever I was out. And then made the move out to Seattle. I got a job out here. So brought myself and my boyfriend, who luckily was working. He's now my husband. But he was working what is that called? When he just like, he was traveling for work. So he could be wherever.
Okay. He was remote. Okay.
Yes. And so we came out here and his parents happened to live in Portland. I promise this will all connect together at some point.
Portland. Just kidding.
We're like, oh, Portland. They're now in Seattle, so I guess they felt the same way.
All right.
But the reason I say that is basically what like really launched me into the world of wine is we took a trip down to Willamette Valley in Oregon. And the reason we did that was we had a dog and it was easy to drop her off at her in-laws to stay there for the weekend so we could have a weekend away. Like we're definitely your typical Seattle, folks with a dog where they're like, she's precious. She needs to go with her grandparents for the weekend.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because we plan our trips around our dog, so I get it.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. So that worked out. We went down to Willamette Valley, and I just caught the bug. I thought wine was such a cool idea that like they all made a lot of Pinot Noir, a lot of Chardonnay, and I remember this like very specific moment tasting a Chardonnay and being like, "Are you sure you didn't put coconut and pineapple in this? Because it is so strong of an aroma that is making me think of that." And it just was so fascinating to me and how they could all make Pinot Noir and most of them would taste different, even to someone who was untrained as myself at the time to like notice that they were different. And so it really sparked this interest in me. I came home and I got this book that was recommended while we were on a tour down there. It's called Cork Dork, which is kind of a fun name. And it just dove into all aspects of wine. I read that and that was kind of just like the start of all the craziness.
All right. One thing you didn't share, what was your college major?
I was a computer science major.
So are you kind of are you using that comp-sci mindset to approach wine? Are you very analytical?
Honestly, I feel like it's more of like a reprieve from like the analytical side of things. And honestly, I don't even know if I've ever been a super analytical person. I'm very driven by emotion. And I think I just like, I have been a math person though. I do love math and like problem solving. So maybe that's kind of it. And like, I take the like questioning aspect that like, I think I did this a little bit in computer science, but not as much. It's more like in my life that like, I love asking the question why. And you can ask the question why about wine a million times.
Right. All right. So Willamette Valley, we're talking about Oregon. I'm just kidding. Because Willamette Valley is well known for its, its wine. And so Cork Dork, I mean, we can talk about Oregon as long as we insert the words Cork Dork. That was you got the bug. How long from that trip to getting the idea to start Cork and Fizz?
Yeah. First after that trip, I came back, like I said, I got that book and then I got every book on wine that I could at the library. And I knew I wanted to try more wine. But I was like just out of college. I was also new to an area. And so I decided to kind of, kill two birds with one stone. I'd start a wine club with friends. And it wasn't anything super serious. It was more meant to be like, hey, everybody come over, bring a bottle of wine based on some theme that we've decided. And we'll hang out, we'll taste them. Anybody that wants to dive deeper into them, that's what I'll be doing because it'll be a great opportunity for me to taste a ton of wine without having to buy all of the bottles. And this was a way for me to start connecting. I mean, I invited, there were a bunch of coworkers that I just started working with. We were living in an apartment at the time. So some of our like folks who were on the floor with us, and even this couple that we met at the dog park, again, dog comes up everywhere.
Right.
But a couple we met at the dog park that we invited over. And so that is essentially what started this wine club. And then it wasn't until the pandemic hit in 2020 when we couldn't get together. And I want to say we'd been doing that wine club for at least a couple years since then. And then we couldn't get together. And so I decided to host my first virtual wine tasting with them. I went, bought a bunch of wine, poured it in little plastic cups and dropped it off at everyone's door. And then like hosted a little wine tasting.
Oh my gosh.
It sounds so cute. Just like these little like packages of, here's your wine.
Quite funny.
And that I had a lot of fun doing that. And basically it sparked that idea of like, what if I did this for more people and kind of created something out of it?
All right. Does your husband like wine?
He does. He doesn't love it as much as I do, but it's definitely been one of those things where like, well, I'm drinking. And so he's kind of been pulled along for the ride.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, see, that hasn't worked in our house. My wife likes wine, and well, we went for a wine. It was my birthday last weekend when we were recording this. And so we went up to Leavenworth. We were going to go out to dinner, and we were walking around town, and we had some time to kill before our reservation. And so I said, do you want to get, wine tasting? She's like, yeah. So we stopped at a winery, which names escape me now. I apologize. And she, went through a wine tasting, and she's like, you want to try it? I'm like, ugh. Just each one. There were six options. And the only one that I cared for was they had a port, and I liked the port. And I realized that I think for wine, for me, what I like, it's kind of the way I like my coffee, which is that thick, syrupy, big mouthfeel, if you will, without trying to, that's about as sophisticated of wine talk as you're going to get from me this whole episode.
I mean, you sound like you know what you're saying.
Well, I'm referencing coffee here. So I used to work at Starbucks, and they used to have this thing about mouthfeel. So I've known that for, it's related to coffee. But what I do appreciate about wine, as I talk to people around the state, and as I go around the state, is Washington State is this massive industry of wine. Maybe there's a glut even right now of grapes, from a business standpoint. But the state of Washington has embraced this industry, and there's some really creative people out there that are doing some really cool things that, even though I might not really enjoy their product, I enjoy everything else about the experience of going to their tasting room, the branding, the vibe of it, the pairing of it with food, just the whole experience. If they just give me coffee, I'd be thrilled. So I can kind of see why you would, if you like wine, I could see why you would go this way. So I all right. So the pandemic, and we got another pandemic story going on here, which, I don't want to go back to the pandemic.
No.
But there's been a lot of really cool things created in response to what we all lived through. It sounds like you're another example of that. You improvised.
Yeah.
Plastic cups of wine delivered to you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, legally, I can't do that as part of the business, but it was fun with Fred.
No, but look, like the state of Washington, you may know this, you may not. They opened up and let their cocktails to go.
Yep. Oh, yeah. A lot of liquor laws changed slightly so that they could, especially for the restaurants that were seriously struggling.
And this state has been, in my opinion, very conservative with what it allows. And it made some significant adjustments across, not just in wine, but, to go cocktails. I would have never, ever thought of that. So you started Cork and Fizz in response to the pandemic. Was there a lot of demand, a lot of interest from the very beginning with people?
I mean, I think the main challenge that I had was that it is this kind of new idea of wine. And I'm not saying that I'm the first one who's done this, but it certainly wasn't as common then, is a little more common now. But basically this idea of creating an experience around wine, like for people who are just not don't want to study it, but they just want to have a good time.
Right.
And I think in doing that in your home, right? And with the virtual sense where it started, I do believe there was this desire for something. And at least that's what inspired me. A lot of it for creating the business was everyone's sick of the Zoom happy hours where we all just go so what'd you do today? How was your day? And it's I stayed home or I went for a hike because that's the only thing we can do, right?
Right.
It really there wasn't much to it. So it was this idea of just learning something new, being able to connect with folks that you couldn't go visit in a different way. I think the biggest thing was just putting it out there and making people realize this was an option. As soon as people did it, there was a lot of just wow, I never realized I could have an interest in something or learn so much about something that I kind of just drink occasionally on the weekends and don't care that much about.
Okay. Walk me through a private virtual tasting. Let's just do that. I mean, I'm on your site, and podcasts are audio only, so I got to try to like paint the visual picture. But there's a picture of a laptop, 3 glasses of wine, a white, a rosé, and a red on a paper placemat that has kind of some descriptions to check it off. And off to the left is a little plate of cheese and crackers and olives and all that. So it's kind of, you've kind of set the stage here.
Yeah.
Walk me through one of those.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think basically think about like my goal with these virtual tastings was one, to create an experience similar to like when you were at the winery in terms of like getting to taste a few different things. Mm-hmm. So yes, you would usually have 3 wines. And I love having, I would encourage folks to like, even if you didn't have like the fanciest of wine glasses, like pour the wine into 3 different cups and have them sitting in front of you all at the same time. So you can kind of go in between them. You don't need to finish a full glass. But that's, yeah. So you've described the setup beautifully. You've got the wines in front of you. You've got a little tasting note sheet. If you want to take notes, I always would caveat with like, if you're the person who just wants to doodle in the corner, go for it. That's fine. Like, this is not a homework assignment. This is as much as like, and then if you're the person like me, that's like, I need to take notes on everything because I'm so, like that's great too. You can do that. And so the idea is once you would book a tasting, I usually put together a slide deck. I'm a visual person. I mean, it's funny. I have a podcast, but I'm also a very visual person. So when I'm learning things, I do love to like see what's being talked about and have the visuals to go along with it. Mm-hmm. And we would just deep dive into wine. I mean, if you chose the Wine 101 theme, we would go into how does fermentation work? Why, in the fermentation formula, I told you I liked math. There is like one formula I always teach everyone because it shows you, how a sparkling wine is made and why California in a warmer climate creates wines with higher alcohol and that bigger mouthfeel that you were talking about. And we dive into each of those. We go into like all the different types of wine. And then the biggest part of each of my tastings and what I try to focus on is to teach people how to taste wine, how to, smell the different things in the glass and different tips and tricks for pulling things out and essentially finding what you like and what you don't like. Mm-hmm. And because it's totally fine. Not everyone's going to like every wine. I wanted to help people discover what it is that they liked. So then they could walk into any wine shop and find that another great bottle because they knew what they liked.
All right. So I'm on the appointment schedule thing here, and I've got a virtual wine tasting for 1 to 2, 3 to 6, and 7 to 10, right? Let's just go. It's just me and my wife. We'll work through the scenario. So I'm going to click select. Hopefully I'm not messing up your cart.
I hope not either. I mean, it's one of those great tests.
Actually, this is pretty cool the way you got it laid out. So you can, so by the way, at the current price, that's an hour and 15 minutes for $80, reasonable. I can get a custom wine tasting placemat design. It's a printable for $25. Great. And then I can pick, we have day drinking options. I like this. No, at 3:00. So we're picking these and I'm just going to randomly pick and I'm going to say 5:30 on the 21st, fill in my name, my information, how many will be joining, boom, 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 info. How did I find Cork and Fizz? So how do we, from this point, I'm not going to click anything else. Oh, please pick your wine theme. There you go. See? Okay. Wine 101, Washington State wines. We're going to play along. This is Washington State wines. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to do a virtual Washington State wines tasting. Take over from there for me. That's as much decision-making as I can possibly handle here.
So then like basically like next steps after that, when you book that, I will send you an email and we'll talk about how to get the wines to you. This is obviously something where, unfortunately, as we talked about, Washington is kind of difficult. I mean, honestly, every state is difficult when it comes to liquor laws with something like this. I am not a wine shop myself, and I actually really like that aspect of this because I can focus on the experience and the education, and it opens up to a lot of different options for how you want to get your wine. You're not limited to just what I have. So I'll essentially send you a message. And one, I'll check, do you have wines at home already that you want to talk about and learn about? Right. If that's the case, send me a picture of them. I can help pick out from your here. I just had one recently where they're like, here's my list on Vivino. Which ones do you think would be good for a tasting? Okay. And did that. Or you just send me, I want to learn more about these bottles. Or I'll, they'll say like, no, I just want to like connect me with a local wine shop in my area, or here's where I'm shopping. Can you give me the list of the wines? And
right.
so I'll send you a list of wines after figuring out what you like. If this is one of those scenarios where it's like, I don't drink whites, or, like there's some people have, certain wines that they do not want to even explore or try.
Okay.
Happy to go along with that. And then we'll pick out your wines, and we already have the date. So I'll tell you what to do in terms of which ones to put in the fridge, which ones to leave out. Don't put them anywhere near your kitchen when it's warm. Like, go put them in the back of your closet.
Right.
And then you'll get set up for the tasting during the date, and we'll join a Zoom call to start talking about wine.
So let's just say I want big reds. I want big, bold red wines. Okay. And you've already you started out as a white wine person. Let's just say, for sake of conversation, that's not your favorite description. You're like, oh, another big reds. Oh boy. Do you ask what I want my price point to be? Okay.
Definitely.
So what's the typical, what do people, when we're doing this, what do people kind of like land on? Are they, I'm joking, are they doing, $2 Chuck? Are they doing, something from a boutique winery in Walla Walla? Where do people fall?
I think the most common is that they're falling in like that $15 to $30 range, which to me is kind of like the most where I think is a great place to start, or even just to stay in most of your wine buying. It does limit you to like a lot of the smaller wineries in Washington, especially if you're doing a theme like Big Reds. You're gonna probably have to we're going to look for some bigger wineries. And a lot of times they want to shop at places like Total Wine, or even Trader Joe's potentially in the area, so that it's easier. Total Wine is like my preference because I can just look online and find the bottles exactly. Trader Joe's, I'm happy to go and look around and see what they got. But yeah, I'd say like the 15 to 30, unless someone kind of knows like what they're certainly searching for, or it's a corporate event, in which case sometimes we can bump up the price a little bit.
I'm trying to decide how I want to move forward here, because you said Total Wine and Trader Joe's, which we don't have in Wenatchee.
Oh, sure.
So we don't have that. I would think if we were doing this in Wenatchee, we'd probably be going to Costco.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
I mean, Costco is probably which is fine, I guess. But it's just, we don't
Costco's
have
got great options for wine.
Yeah, we don't have the abundant choices that you do in, say, Seattle area or Spokane. Okay. So we've got our 3 bottles of wine. We're going to do Big Reds.
Okay.
It's the time. It's the 3:00 in the afternoon. Sorry.
Well, okay, to be fair, these are virtual tastings. So the idea is also that like you could book it when you're in New York and 3:00.
I know. I'm teasing. It's Monday. It's 3:00. Let's go.
But also, I mean, that doesn't sound that bad to me.
No, it doesn't. There's no judgment here. I'm just kind of amused.
I know.
No judgment at all. All right. So we pop on Zoom and we've got our 3 bottles of wine. Walk me through what's next.
Yeah, so I usually like to start with a little intro. I share a little bit about like how, why do I know what I'm talking about? So I usually like to share, I tell this story of, visiting Willamette Valley, and then all of the, learning from there. I am WSET 2 certified, which is basically just like, says that I did some studying and took a test and that I know a decent amount about wine.
Okay.
And then I always like to get things started. I'll have everyone else that is on the virtual call. So whether everyone's all in the same room, or it's like, people are joining from all over the place. So we have a few different Zoom calls, do some introductions, get people talking. And then I always like to do like we'll start things off with just like what I call like a first sip, first impression of the wine. So before diving deep into each of these wines and, doing a full tasting experience, which I teach there are 4 steps to it. First, it's just, let's just try them. Like, they're sitting in front of you. You're not just going to sit there and look at them this whole time. That's no fun. Let's dive in, give it a swirl, give it a smell. Give it a taste. What is the first thing that comes to mind? And it can be anything from like, ooh, I really like that. I don't know why, but I really like it. It's like, great. We'll come to that later. Or, oh, whoa, that one had that was quite the smell on that one. And it's not fruit. It's not this. I don't know what that is. And it's like, no, that's great. We'll get to that. So just like a little like dip into the wine, and then we dive into more of like the part that I try not to nerd out too much, but nerd out a little bit. So for Washington wine, we'll talk about the history of Washington wine and how Chateau Ste. Michelle got started actually as like a bulk sweet wine producer that created like jug wine essentially, and then how they transformed into Chateau Ste. Michelle, and how a lot of it started with home winemakers who then created larger wineries from that, and where like a lot of that's how Columbia got started. Columbia Winery got started. We'll do history, we'll talk about the geography, I'll show you a map, we'll look at all the areas, and then we'll do an official guided tasting of each of your 3 wines.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
Yeah,
so I would enjoy that. I might not being very transparent with you, I might not like all 3 but I would enjoy the process of it. So I like the way that you're making wine approachable. That's one of the things that I don't care for, is because I'm not comfortable, is what I perceive as the pretentiousness of some people when they're, talking wines, and it's like, I don't know how to participate in that conversation because I don't have the words.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no reason. And I think too that, and I'm sure, we'll get to this too. I mean, we were talking all about wine, but when you look at it, and I've taken a step back to be like, why am I obsessed with wine? Like, I mean, you're welcome to be, there's nothing, if it was just as simple as that. But I think for me, wine is more of like an avenue to learn things and to connect with people. And those to me are actually more important. And maybe had it not been a trip to Willamette Valley and it had been something else, right, it would have been something else that, was the thing that connected me, or the avenue in which I achieved those things. But it ended up being wine. And that's what's most important. It's okay if you don't like all the wines that we tried. It's okay if you don't like any of them. You're like, I'd kind of rather have a beer. And I'm like, no worries. Thanks for being here. Glad you got to hope you had a good time.
And then you hit
even if it wasn't your,
button.
Go ahead and grab the beer from the fridge. I know you have it waiting there for you.
That's funny. Okay. So that's how you started. How'd the podcast get going? And what prompted you to start a podcast? I mean, I'm joking, but what's wrong with you? I mean, I've been doing this one. This has been almost 5 years of doing the show. So, you've been doing yours almost 2 years, right?
Yeah, I know.
Right,
yeah.
So did you hit pod fade? Did you wake up one day going, why am I doing this? But what was the motivation for you to start a podcast?
I think it started with, so I run a social media, mainly on Instagram, to like promote my business. But in creating that social media and in promoting Cork and Fizz, I really loved getting to, one, educate people, but the work it took to create a post and like create, the reel, or even if it was just like a carousel and graphics, and I'm kind of too much of a perfectionist to just leave it and be like, oh, that's fine. I would take way too long to put that together. And then sometimes people wouldn't even like see it. And it took so much time for me to do, and I didn't even get to share everything I wanted to share. And so the podcast came, and I'd been wanting to do it for a little while, since doing Cork and Fizz. And just, this is my favorite thing, is getting to talk to people about wine. And each of my tastings, I loved the experience of just getting to like, one, do the research ahead of time and then share that with everyone in a way that made sense to them. I love when I can see something kind of like click. And so I wanted more ways to do that. And one way that I could at least control it, I can't make people book more tastings, but I can find a way to talk with more people. And so it was basically between like podcast or YouTube. And again, the whole like visual aspect, I am visual, but creating the visuals takes way too much time in terms of making a YouTube video. So I was like, podcast seems easier. Mm-hmm. I can talk. I'm very good at just talking and filling up space. That would be the easy part. The hard part is the editing. And I'm like, you know what? I will hire a manager. I'm going to take this as an investment. Cork and Fizz is still not a full-time job. And I don't know if it'll ever be a full-time job for me. And so this way I can create it as an investment, or just as something that I do and use my corporate job to cover the expense of the manager. So all I have to do is, talk, do the research, meet really cool winemakers and ask them questions. I love asking questions. So it just kind of like made sense for getting to do more of what I like to do.
So you're not editing your own show? You've hired, okay, I've done this. I don't think I could be doing this for 5 years without Todd.
Yeah,
my
I mean, I didn't
producer.
even know how to start the podcast. I mean, I started working with my manager, Liz, like from the very beginning. Cause I was like, I want to do this. I have no idea how to do this. Like, please help.
Right. So we're going to talk podcasts here for a second.
Yeah.
And we're not going to talk about wine. We're talking about podcasting and the simple joys and how easy it is to podcast and how listeners just fall out of the sky. And growth for my show has been consistent, steady, not I'm never going to make it as a marketer, but it's not been a vertical, hockey stick growth, nothing like that. It's just been slow and steady, which is fine because the podcast for me is kind of like for you, the same sort of thing, conversation, all that. Has your show grown? And the follow-up to that is, who's your audience?
Yeah, I was like, I feel like there's a second question to that, so I was waiting. Yeah, same as you. It is slow. It is definitely podcasting. It's definitely like a labor of love because, I mean, the way to grow your show is to be consistent and, make sure you're putting an episode out regularly. And like, I've been doing that for 2 years and I'm like excited with every milestone I hit. But it's still like, most episodes get an average about 100 listeners. Okay. And everyone who I talk to like loves it. And my audience is such a mix of like, I get a lot of, it's funny because like Cork and Fizz is a business. My main audience I know is primarily female. Mm-hmm. But with the podcast, I've had quite a mix. And I get some people who are like studying wine and are interested in just like learning more. And this is a good way to kind of like learn about wine in a different way where they don't have to be like in the middle of a textbook doing something. They can just like while they're driving to wherever throw on the podcast and listen to it. Right. Part of my audience is made up of family and friends who found it interesting and like wanted to support me and then actually found it interesting, right? Because you can't listen to a podcast just because you support someone. No, you cannot. Like you would never make it through. And so a lot of it are folks who are, I think like most of the audience, besides those people who are kind of studying, I think they make up that group where they're like, I'm curious about wine. It's interesting to me. I might like to go out wine tasting on the weekends, but I'm not about to like go try to study and, get a certification, or it's not necessarily a passion. It's a hobby and it's a curiosity for them.
Okay. But I think there's a lot of value to provide this type of content to that type of consumer.
Yes.
Okay. Who's your hosting company for your podcast? Buzzsprout.
I'm doing it terrible. I'm like, okay. Liz does everything. I record and give it to her.
You record and give it to her, but Buzzsprout. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. What's the plans for the future on the podcast? Here's a question for you. Cause you said something. No, you said you're a perfectionist. I get and I respect that. You picked audio. Maybe you picked audio for some of the same reasons that I did. Number one, you don't have to be on camera. For me, first and foremost, you and I are looking at each other. No problem with that. But if I was recording this with the intention that it would go on YouTube, I would not be very comfortable. I might get comfortable, but right now I would not be comfortable. So I picked audio because I have a face for radio. That's the way I look at it. Okay. I also picked audio because what I believe is that the post-production is easier than video. I also picked it because 5 years ago, YouTube wasn't really interested in doing podcasts. That's changed, but those are the three big reasons. And number one being I just didn't want to be on camera. But why'd you pick podcasting and not do video?
I mean, the main reason was that like how much more work would have to go into it if I wanted it to be a video. I mean, for one, like you're looking at my background right now. I mean, to be fair, I'm in a rental right now. And so like there's boxes strewn about because we're planning on moving back. And so I knew that like, you know, if I wanted it to be video, it also needed to like, not only did I need to look nice, the surrounding needed to look nice. And I needed that space. And I also felt like with video, there would just be too many things that would make me put it off and not do it and just be like, maybe later, maybe when I have more time, and maybe this podcast. I'm not saying it's easy, but it just felt like there was an easier entry point to just like, I just needed to get a mic. I just needed to, you know, get that work with a manager. I need to have something to talk about. And I could start with just that. And that made it so much easier to kind of jump into it.
No, I agree with you 100%, you know, because you could, it's Saturday morning. You don't feel like doing your hair and your makeup. You can throw a ball cap on, speak in your microphone, and nobody knows. Nobody knows. Where if it was video, you're like, I don't really want to do that today.
Well, and you got to think about like,
it's raining and the dog needs to go for a walk, which is a reference to our What's Your Washington conversation. Go listen to that, folks. It's on What's Your Washington. Anyway, I kid. Do you think you might go video though in the future? Do you think it would be advantageous to the way you want to help educate and promote wine?
It could go either way for me. Like as soon as you ask that question, it goes on either side for me. Like one, maybe, you know, the simple like entry point would just be to start, you know, I do record my podcast with the video on. The editing though is just done in audio. We just use the video mainly for social media. So like maybe we could bring to a point where we would edit both the audio and the video and just post that. The thing that I'm thinking about, one, and I'd have to do research into this because I know I'm not the only person in the world that listens to podcasts, but for me, listening to a podcast, I don't listen on YouTube. Especially a single person talking, maybe if there's like a group of people, but even then, like I listen to podcasts on the go. It doesn't make sense for me to put them as a video, but I'm sure there's a decent amount of people who do listen on YouTube and just like to have it going. I don't know. I would need to do more deep dive into whether that's worth it. My other thought is like, again, focusing on my expertise or not necessarily my expertise, but what I think I'm good at and what I can bring to people. There are some great video, like folks creating video content on wine. Okay. And I don't know if that's where I can provide the most value and I could be. Does that make sense? Like, I think they're doing a great job and like, maybe I could do it, but it would take so much more effort and so much more work that I don't know if it would be worth it on my side.
I'm not trying to talk you into this at all because I'm not doing it either. So, I mean, seriously, I'm not trying to, but I believe YouTube is now the second largest podcast listening platform. Technology was not our friend. Haley got so angry. She threw her.
Yeah, I'd had enough of it.
She threw her microphone at the computer screen. It cracked. You didn't see any of this, but I called her. I promised her that you guys would all want to hear what she had to say. And so she's back. But what you didn't hear me say, Haley, was that YouTube is now, I believe, the second largest podcast consumption platform out there.
Which is just,
I'm with you. I don't think of YouTube as a mobile, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, those are mobile platforms for me to listen to while I'm out for a walk, when I'm in my car.
Right.
I don't think of YouTube as like, I don't want to be watching YouTube videos while I'm driving. You know, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting to you that you should create a video first show. I am offering that you should publish your audio only episodes on YouTube.
Oh, I do that.
Okay.
I should have. Yes, I do. Okay. Yes, we do publish those because like we were on like Google. When I say we, it's like me and my podcast manager, you know, right. The team, where because there was like Google Podcasts for a little while and then they got rid of that. So we did go up on YouTube and yes, there is all the audio only, at least for now.
Right. And, you know, and I get a handful of listens on an episode. Some episodes do really, really well and some don't, but it's just another point of discoverability.
Yeah.
All right. So as one podcaster or the other, we kind of understand that this is, so let's just thank the listeners that are stuck with it this far, because, you know, we appreciate them. And this is a platform that works well for me personally. I prefer it. It doesn't seem to meet the criteria of fast growth, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right. I'm going to, not that our tech challenges didn't like totally change directions of our conversation, but I'm going to totally change direction here. I'm going to ask you some very specific questions now. All right.
Okay.
And we are going to talk about Washington State wines.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put you not on the spot, but let's narrow our conversation down into Washington State wines. What is your favorite Washington State wine region?
Oh, Walla Walla.
So do you own the t-shirt that says Walla Walla is for wine, Napa is for auto parts?
I don't, but that sounds great.
Isn't that a lovely, lovely shirt that you should, I mean,
yes.
You talk about, you talk about wines all over the world. So you're going to eventually be discussing Napa Valley, but Walla Walla is for wine, Napa is for auto parts.
I love it.
I saw that, and I just, you know, I have a good friend of mine in Texas who is very much into wine. 5,000 bottle seller.
Dang.
Very, very good taste in wine.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife both advanced studies. They enjoy their wines. And I had dinner with them one night, and we had a bottle of wine. And it was delicious. It really was. All I can remember, it was from Australia.
Okay.
And it was about $1,000 bottle of wine.
That's insane.
And he orders it. He's like a member of their wine club. So he gets it the year of release and he keeps it. Okay. So this was, you know, didn't cost him $1,000, but this is not something you're going to run to Trader Joe's for.
Sure.
All
right.
And it was delicious. And I explained to him, I said, there's no way I'm going to, because I think of wine as a single serving bottle. I don't mean that I'm going to drink it all, but I don't think of wine as something that you open today and save it till, like, I like bourbon. So I'll pour some bourbon, put it back on the shelf. I'm not really worried about going back to it. Wine, I think it doesn't, this is my knowledge, limited. You know, it doesn't keep well once we've opened it, blah, 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 blah. So I think of wine as a single serving bottle. For more than one person, by the way, not just for one person.
Sure.
And I'm not going to spend $1,000 on a single serving anything. So the next wine we had with dinner, are you familiar with the label The Prisoner?
Yes. Yep.
Have you ever had any of The Prisoner?
I have had The Prisoner. Yes, the main one.
Right. It was horrible. And I'll tell you why, though. No. So here's the thing. Had this lovely wine. I mean, it was amazing. Seriously, it was, you know, Scott likes wine if it's $1,000 a bottle from this Australian.
Yeah, right. I'm like, it's not that you don't like wine. You just have really bougie taste in wine.
Bougie taste. So he brought out a bottle of The Prisoner. And what's The Prisoner retail for in Washington? About $75?
I mean, I think maybe even closer to 50, but maybe I'm shopping
50,
at like.
Let's just say 50 to 100. Let's just. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And he opens the bottle and pours his glasses, and I sip it, and I'm just like, this is where I don't know anything. And I'm like, well, this really sucks compared to what I just had. This is horrible. I look at my friend, and he's got kind of a funny look on his face. Look at his wife, and she's got a funny look on her face too. So I'm like, They take a couple more sips, and they're like, this is a bad bottle.
Oh.
So we got a bad bottle of The Prisoner. So my only experience with The Prisoner is that it was a bad bottle. But are you familiar with the story of that brand?
I am not. I mean, I'm like, something's coming to mind, but I'm like, I cannot put it. No, so I'm not.
A Napa Valley winemaker, I do not know his name, was making wine for one of the large, well-known wineries there. He decided to go out on his own. He created the label. He was renting production facilities. He was buying grapes from wherever he could get them. He basically built a brand.
That's right. Yes.
He sold that brand for like $250 million.
Yeah.
Now just do the math. At $50 a bottle, how many bottles of wine whoever bought that thing has to sell just to recoup their initial investment for getting costs. Anyway, wine's a big business. All right. I totally sidetracked you, but the question I asked you, favorite wine region, and you said Walla Walla, and I cut you off. What about Walla Walla do you like?
I think some of it's just like personal, and that the experience and being there. So to give a little background on this, I've done a couple wine retreats out to Walla Walla that I've hosted myself. And so before hosting those retreats, I went out with my husband and we were out there for a weekend. And again, this is where like I really think that like wine is often so attached to also an experience and emotion and all of this. Cause you're right. You wouldn't pay $1,000 for like a bottle. Maybe if it's attached to a certain experience. I mean, even that is like going a little above and beyond, but like, that's why I would pay upwards of $100, $200 a bottle, because it's the experience. And so to me, the Walla Walla love, one, comes from visiting there and falling in love with just the feel of that region. I said I come from a small town, and Walla Walla is a small town, or a couple small towns that the region is made up of. And it's a lot of winemakers doing a lot of fun, unique things and really highlighting the amazing things that wine can do.
Right. And I know my video is frozen, at least on my side. So
yeah, I was like, I hope you're still there, at least listening, but I can't.
Sorry, folks.
You.
We're flying without a net here. All right. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask you your favorite Walla Walla winery, but I'm going to ask you to give me some recommendations for Walla Walla wines.
Oh, absolutely. Easy. Well, the first thing that I always share with folks, if you're ever in Walla Walla, one of the best experiences you can do if you want to dive a little deeper into the wine world, the winery called Delmas offers a vineyard tour. You won't get to taste the wine. They are a very small producing, so they don't have a tasting room and they don't typically offer tastings, but you will get an in-depth vineyard tour with either the winemaker, Brooke, or her father, who is one of the founders of that special region in Walla Walla that is called the Rocks District. Okay. And it's just this, they love wine and they're so passionate about it that it is a really cool experience to get to go out into the vineyard and learn about how, and she actually started in Napa. So you get to learn a little bit about how it's different growing grapes here in Washington versus in Napa. Mm-hmm. So that is an experience I would recommend if you're in Walla Walla. As for the wines, and just whether you're out there tasting or you're just looking to order wines, I'm a big fan. Grosgrain is a great one. It's spelled like gross grain, GROSGRAIN.
Okay.
They make a lot of unique, fascinating wines, lots of sparkling. You've still got your big reds if that's your favorite, but also some like lighter Italian whites and Italian reds. I'm trying to think of some other things. They just have a lot of diversity, which I think is really fun in the wine. Duclos Cellars. I also never know if I say that right. It's DUCLEAUX Cellars. It's a husband and wife team that are making amazing wines. I'm a big fan, and mostly blends for the most part. So like Rhone Valley blends are in that same area that Delmas is in. So Rhone Valley, it's a region in France that produces a certain style of wine. We often just call it that here in the US because it's easier to associate it with it. But just lots of flavor, lots of spice, lots of fruit in the wine. And it's really good. I'm trying to think. Gramercy is another one. I fell in love with their Syrah. If you love Syrah, Gramercy has some of the best that I've ever had. And also a fun grape called Mourvedre that they do really well.
See, I think you've just kind of unintentionally touch on why I'm uncomfortable with wine, and that is because I'm unable to pronounce
fair
half of the grapes or half of the names of the wineries, and I just self-conscious, ego, whatever. All right, but those are all valid. So when you go to Walla Walla, where do you stay?
I've stayed at a couple spots. For the retreats, we've stayed at the Finch, which is a great motel turned hotel. That is a fun spot to stay. I'm trying to remember where we stayed when it was just me and my husband. It was more of like a bed and bath kind of Bed and Bath. Goodness, I'm thinking like Bed Bath and Beyond. It was a bed and breakfast.
So the Bed Bath and Beyond in Walla Walla has overnight stays now?
Yeah, it's a really great place to stay.
Cool. Don't mind us. We're just sleeping here. Okay. Right.
It's a bed and breakfast style, but I'm forgetting the name of it. Honestly, you really can't go wrong with any of the. There's a lot of little cute boutique hotels in and around Walla Walla, but the Finch is where I've stayed for the last for my 2 retreats that I did, and I was a big fan of it.
Have you gone up to Red Mountain area?
No, that's one of them that's on my list. Like, I was ready today. I know we were going to talk about some Washington wine, and I'm like, 2 Washington wine regions I haven't been to that I want to are Red Mountain and the Columbia Gorge.
Okay. So you haven't been to the Columbia Gorge either. All right.
No, I know. I like tasted some of their wine at Taste Washington earlier this year, and that is like the next, on my list of like where we need to travel to.
Now, when I think of grapes and wine, I think of Central Washington. I think of, Walla Walla, Yakima, the whole, the more agricultural areas of the state that have been impacted positively by the dams on the Columbia for irrigation and turning, high desert into, usable land. But there's a fair amount of stuff that's done on the west side of the state.
There is, surprisingly. It's not where you would think of growing wine grapes, but there is some stuff happening over here.
Have you ever been up to Orcas Island in the San Juans? Have you tried the winery up there?
I have tried wine from is the Orca Project up there?
Yes.
There's a winery up there. I've had their wine, but that's because they have a tasting room here in Seattle. Okay. But I've not been up there myself yet. That's
a good journey to go to.
Yeah.
Because you can't go wrong in the San Juans.
No, I mean, I think in the San Juans, my husband and I had a trip planned there April 2020. You can imagine why we didn't go.
I don't know why. You were, that's right. You were busy delivering little cups of wine.
That's right. Exactly. Right. Yes.
What is, I am going to put you on the spot here. There's no wrong answers. So I don't want you to, and folks, when I ask questions like this, I guess I understand I'm really putting you on the spot. But what's your favorite Washington State wine?
Like style of wine or specific wine?
I want a specific.
I'm going to go back to a winery that I've already mentioned because I do love it. It's the Delmas Viognier, and that looks nothing like how it's said. Okay. It's like Viognier is what the word looks like, but it is Delmas Viognier, and Viognier is the grape, and it's just this like floral, somewhat rich, like it has that really full mouth feel, but it's a white wine, and it's just, I love it.
You love it. All right. Now, same question. Period. No limitations to Washington State. What's that you've tried, the wines that you've tried? You can only have one wine the rest of your life. The clock is ticking.
Oh man, and it's one bottle.
One bottle.
I'm between either. There's a winery down in Santa Barbara in California called Final Girl, and they have a Chenin Blanc that they make, and it's again, I'm a huge, I drink white and red, but I definitely drink more white. Chenin Blanc is a white wine, and it has that same balance between a lot of great acidity, but then a little bit of richness, and it pairs well with a lot of different foods. Okay. I'm between that and I just went to France back in September, and I got to go visit Burgundy and visit some wineries there. And so basically any of those wineries that I visited, one of their premier cru, Chardonnay, Burgundy, I'd be pretty happy if that was all that. If I was stuck drinking one, it could be that one.
All right. Next question to follow up on that. Is there a wine that you haven't tried yet that you really aspire to? If price was no object, if travel was no object, the holy grail, if you will, is there something out there that's you want?
There is a special wine that I think anybody in the wine world might think of this in when you ask that question. It's I'm trying to remember the full name, but Yquem is what it's Oh God, I can't spell. You can look it up based on the sound of it.
Okay.
But it is a sweet wine from Bordeaux, France. It's a Sauterne. And it's just like anybody who tries it just describes it as like the most delectable, honeyed, beverage like that you could ever have. And they're just like, it's just an explosion of flavors, and it is insanely expensive. So that's why I have not tried it.
All right. Those are
Chateau
all
Yquem. I think that's what it's called. Chateau Yquem.
Okay. Those are all, see, there's fine answers. There's no right or wrong answer here. And
And ask me on another day and I'd probably tell you something else. I mean, the other thing that came to mind was like, I want to go to New Zealand and actually try the Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand, because I know it's 1,000 times better than what they like export to the US.
All right. Well, we won't go there on exports. Okay. And for those of you who might be hearing my dog having his opinion on wines right now too. Cork Crew.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Well, it says, hey, wine lover. So that's not me. So why don't you tell me what's going on?
That's true. It's probably not the right fit for you. You should pass this along to your friend down in Texas.
Yes, there you go.
The Cork Crew is a virtual wine tasting club that I started. It started, God, how long has it been? It started a year after Cork and Fizz. And it was this idea of like creating this community of folks who are interested in learning more about wine, but like wanted to be surrounded by people who they would feel comfortable around and where they didn't feel silly for not knowing something. And we get together, we do, it's changed a little bit over the years, but this year I've been doing, we do one theme every month, but I host 2 different tastings. So you get to pick the day. And we just dive in. It's kind of like one of those virtual wine tasting classes, but it's part of this club and you get to see these same people all the time. And so we do a tasting every month. And then a lot of times I bring in winemakers to do Q&As or even sommeliers. We brought in the author of that book, Cork Dork. Remember that from the beginning? She came in and talked to us. So yeah, it's just like, it's like that community of folks who are interested in wine, but maybe don't, again, it doesn't need to be a thing that you're studying and you're, planning to learn a ton about. It's just like, I'm curious. I want to learn more. It's kind of a fun space and I want to feel comfortable asking questions.
So I'm going to tease you, but then I'm going to set up and tease myself right afterwards. Okay, so this is fair. So it says new event coming soon, April 11th or April 12th. And that's in the past. But I'm going to tease myself because what are the 2 wines? I'm not going to pronounce either of those 2 wines that you were choosing between. So let's walk through like that was the upcoming event. Like this, This is in the past now, folks. So what are those 2 wines and how are we going to pronounce those?
Yes. So that is Sancerre versus Touraine.
Okay. And Touraine?
Yeah. I think in French they go Touraine, but I'm not French, so I just say Touraine.
Okay. Sancerre and Touraine. Okay. So we're going to try those 2 types of wine.
Yeah. So this one was, and I do a few different styles of these. You only do 2 wines, I should say, as well, with each of these virtual tastings. So it's meant to like, you're not buying a ton of bottles every month. And so these are 2 Sauvignon Blanc wines from France, and they're actually from really close by. And so the idea of this tasting was like, how different can 2 wines taste when they're made from the same grape and like within, I want to say it was under 100 kilometers away from each other.
And did people notice a distinct difference?
Yeah, everyone who tasted could tell they were different. And sometimes it was because of the soil and where they were grown, but sometimes it was what the winemaker did, how they made it and the choices that they made.
Okay. That's actually very cool. That's things about wine I can get into, is like the whole how the year, for example, when Washington wines, when we had a lot of smoke over here, those years, the grapes had a real smoky influence to them, things like that. I think it's fascinating. So you got private tastings, you do those in person, you do them virtually. You got blind tastings, you've got corporate tastings, you got your Cork Crew, you've got private tours, you've got all sorts of stuff coming on here. And people need to go to corkandfizz.com. That's super easy to say. Corkandfizz.com. But we're going to shift because we got to wrap this up. So we got to ask you the important questions about Washington State. Now, these are the three questions that you agreed you'd play along with. And so number one is, you're in the Seattle area. Great place for coffee.
Yes. And I know we joked about this before because you're like, you don't drink wine and I actually don't really drink coffee.
How have we talked for this long? I don't understand.
Right?
We have nothing in common. Anyway, go on.
But I do love a good coffee shop. I'm just more of a matcha or a tea person. Okay. So the two that came to mind, I'm actually, like I said, I'm in a rental for a little bit. I'm in the Maple Leaf neighborhood.
Maple Leaf, okay.
And Cloud City, up on, I couldn't even tell you the road because again, I'm just here temporarily. Cloud City, and then just down the street from that is Blue Saucer. They're both very good. Blue Saucer had a great a play on a London fog, but I think it had like cardamom and it was like an orange spice tea. It was really good. And then Cloud City, they have a good chai and a good breakfast sandwich.
Interesting. I've not tried either of those places. All right.
Yeah, they're very small. Just like, and like I said, Maple Leaf, I feel like is not like a very super popular area in Seattle. And I'm kind of happy about that because it's really nice.
Yeah, it's a nice, quiet residential area. And that's my interpretation of it. Okay. The follow-up question is, it's going to be lunchtime and I'm going to be hungry. Where's a great place for lunch?
Oh, you're going to be on the same street as those two coffee shops. There's no, I should give you another. I'm going to tell you this one, but they're only open for lunch on Fridays and the weekends, I believe.
Interesting.
But I'm going to tell you anyway. They're mostly open for dinner. It's called The Maple.
The Maple.
Makes sense, right? It's in Maple Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have, it's so funny because they do so many things. They're this cute little house that's been turned into a restaurant. They have an amazing menu just of like really homey, good stuff. They've got a burger, but they also bring in lots of different things. But then they also, on the side of the restaurant, they have what's called the banana stand. And they do like takeout drinks and food there. And then they have like a patio in the back that they do. So I love that spot, but I'm also thinking for like, if it's not Friday or the weekend, my next go-to, let's see here, if you're I'm trying to think either in Maple Leaf now or my house where I'm normally at is in Ravenna. And the go-tos in that area, Bryant Corner Cafe is a good spot. They did change hands recently, so it's like I can't attest to the new owners, but it's been a great spot in the community for a very long time.
All right. Now, this is the question I wouldn't share with you before. Remind you that you did agree to play along.
That's right.
And that my camera is frozen, so you really don't know what face I'm making right now.
I have no idea.
Which is building this up even more. So here's the thing. It's a very simple question, but you have to answer and tell me why. Clear on the rules?
Okay. Yep. I realized I was nodding, but I should say, okay, this is a podcast.
Well, I can see. Okay. Yeah, I can see you. So she was nodding.
Yeah. It doesn't matter about everyone.
She was nodding, folks. I mean, everyone that gets this far is going to say yes anyway, right? All right.
Yeah, right.
All right. You ready?
Ready.
Cake or pie?
Oh, pie. I don't know what it is. Like cake is like too dry in my opinion, and pie is just better.
Okay. There's no wrong answer here. So you think cake is dry?
Yes.
Pie. What type of pie?
What I want to go to is a key lime pie. My grandma would make them when I was younger.
Okay.
Now it would probably have to be dairy free because I'm decently lactose intolerant.
Okay.
You can make a really good one with like cashews or coconut. Either that or like a lemon meringue.
All right.
Yeah.
What are you going to pair? What wine are you pairing with a lemon meringue?
Ooh, man, wine and sweet food. That is hard. But I feel like you could do like one, like a Moscato d'Asti is what it's called. So it's from a region in Italy called Asti, and the bottle will say Moscato d'Asti, and it's this like light but sweet and a little bit of sparkling to it.
All right.
So I think that could like work with the sweetness of the lemon meringue.
Okay. I debated whether I was going to ask you this question.
Okay.
But I am going to ask you this question. You have a lead magnet on your website. And I'm going to ask you to, people, go sign up for her newsletter and you'll get this. But because you're listening, I'm going to make her at least give us some examples. Okay. Will you play along and say, all right?
Yeah, sure. So absolutely.
One of the things on your mailing list, it says, sign up now and get my free 15 wines under $15 guide.
Yes.
Share with me a red and a white off that guide, please.
Okay. A white that I believe should be on. It's also I haven't seen this guide in a while, but a white that's under $15 that I'd recommend. We'll do that. And then if it's not on the list, you got a bonus one.
All right.
I do enjoy, and this is one of the first wines that I fell in love with before the trip to Willamette Valley. It's Nobilo Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. And I know I just crapped on all of the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that comes over here, but that is still good.
Okay.
And it's just very friendly. A lot of people like it. It's bright, it's fruity. And then it also pairs well, especially in the summer, with salads and lighter food. So I do enjoy that. Please ignore everything I said about being too hoity-toity about New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
That's okay.
And then for a red under 15, this is where I need to I don't buy enough red. My guess is there is a Rioja. Rioja is a region in Spain that probably Campo Viejo is a producer. So you'd see that on the label. They're the ones that make the wine. And it's called Rioja. And I believe those are under $15. And you can find them at most grocery stores if your grocery stores sell wine, or Total Wine, or most wine shops. And this wine is going to be fruity. They use American oak, so it has a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of spice going on, but again, pairs well with a lot of different foods. So that's a good one.
All right. You've got a video on there when you're on New Day Northwest. And the premise of this was you have a Trader Joe's snack and wine pairing guide. So there's another reason. We're not going to ask you to disclose any of those, but folks can sign up and get the guide. You've got 8 pairings. And I like how you describe this. I'm just going to read this because this is why I like it. Wine and food pairings don't have to be some fancy smancy meal paired with $100+ bottle of wine. A great example of this is taking your favorite snack from Trader Joe's and matching it with a wine just a couple aisles away.
To make things easy around here.
And this is where you really deliver value. I did some experimenting lately and came up with 8 delicious combos that you're going to love. You did the work for us. You went to Trader Joe's.
It was hard work.
You bought snacks. You bought wine. You tested. You failed, but you've narrowed it down to 8. So if that doesn't convince you that you should sign up for your newsletter, folks, I don't know. I'm going to sign up for the newsletter based on that because I want to know what the 8 pairings are.
And who knows? Maybe you'll find one. I don't know if there's a port in amongst those, so I don't know about you, but maybe, who knows? Maybe they'll be paired with the right food for you.
Who knows? Yeah. What's the future holding for you? What do you want to do in the future? As we wrap this up, what's the future? If I call Hailey in 2 years and say, Hailey, how's it been? And you go, I did this and I'm happy. What would that be?
I think I'd like to see, I'm hoping to put a lot of energy. I hope that the podcast is still going strong, the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine. And I hope I've grown the Cork crew. That virtual community has been something that I look forward to every month and getting to learn about wine myself and then share with folks. And then just making connections with those people. So those would be the 2 things that I hope in 2 years I can tell you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sitting down with me amongst our technical challenges today. Appreciate that. I've enjoyed the conversation. In all sincerity, I've enjoyed it. I do appreciate kind of the way you approach wine. It feels like something. I just wish I found more wines I actually like the taste of. I could get into wines if I go, I like this a little more often. It's just
That's fair, and you'd probably hate me for saying it, but I feel the same way about coffee.
No, and yes. This conversation's over. No, it's just, but that's just it. It is very similar. It's like if your palate doesn't appreciate something, sometimes I think we discount the whole category. That there are other things that are very cool about. So where wine actually would win out over coffee for me is, especially because of the Explore Washington State, I can go to where the grapes are grown.
Yeah.
I can meet the people that are making the wine. Coffee is not grown in Washington State. It is imported from, mostly southern hemisphere. And yes, I could go to Mexico or Brazil or Ethiopia to meet the not nearly as easy as I can go to Walla Walla or Yakima.
Right.
You know?
And around here in Washington, they're so good about making it. I think you said that too. They make it an experience.
Yeah.
It's not just here's the wine, drink it, love it, buy some.
Right. So there's a lot to love with wine. If I could just find more wines to love, how's that? I mean, I think that's just it. But I'm cautiously optimistic, because I was telling you about the port. Cautiously optimistic. Maybe port is my gateway into wine, because there we go. So
it can definitely happen. It happened to my dad. That's kind of where he started, and he's having some sweet wines, and then he started having some other wines. He still doesn't love all the wines,
right.
but he has some wines that he likes. So
right. So make sure you go visit corkandfizz.com. We'll put that in the show notes. Hailey, thanks so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.